Hi there, I'm Dawn and welcome to Cosmic Soul Alignment, where we explore the mysteries of existence, awaken deeper truths and connect with the wisdom that transcends this lifetime. Today's guest is Vinney Tolman, a speaker, author and spiritual teacher whose incredible near-death experience has captivated hearts around the globe. So after being clinically dead for over an hour, Vinney returned with vivid memories of the afterlife, bringing back a message of love, of purpose and soul transformation. So welcome to the show, Vinney.
Thank you for having me, Dawn. It's my pleasure.
So welcome. It's lovely to see you. Let me just ask you about what happened at that moment of your passing and what came after. So can you take us back to that moment that you died? What do you remember?
I remember watching, myself, my body quickly start to lose its consciousness. I had taken a supplement that I had OD'd on, and me and my best friend at the time, we both took it, and I had aspirated in a public bathroom with the door locked. So there I was in this bathroom. The whole world started to spin on me. And then the next thing I know, I'm sitting in what feels like a theater. It felt like somewhat like a movie theater. And I was looking down at a body on the ground. I didn't know it was my body. I really didn't. I thought what was me was up here watching this thing. So I started this journey of figuring out I was dead. It was a good hour though, before I figured out that I was dead.
Okay. So it was after that long time they actually realised you were out of your body, yes?
Yeah, so as I was watching all this, I watched my buddy who took the same supplement. I watched him get discovered by the restaurant manager, and they took him away in an ambulatory service. And the next thing I know, I'm just watching people come and go in this restaurant. And finally, one customer, he asked the manager to open the bathroom because it had been locked for a very long time. And when they opened the door, they found this body. Well, they called an ambulance again. They called, here in the States, what we call 911. And when this ambulance came, they did pronounce the body dead. They put the body in a bag and they put it in the back of an ambulance, and they put a rookie, a brand new medic. It was his job to babysit this dead body while the other two medics got paperwork filled out, um, did some witness statements with a few of the people in the restaurant. And, a good time later, when they were leaving this scene of this restaurant, um, only less than a quarter mile down the road, this rookie, he gets this feeling inside of him uh, that this one's not dead. And
Wow.
he breaks protocol. He opens up the body bag and he starts to, feel around for a pulse. He didn't feel one, but what he did feel was some type of shock or spark, electrical spark. And for him, that was enough. He went ahead and attempted full resuscitation. He got the heart started again. Um, and when he got that heart started, he was only a few hundred feet from a hospital. So he was able to take the body directly into the hospital where it could get, all the life-saving treatment that it needed. But meanwhile, I still didn't know it was me until they transferred the body into the hospital. As they strapped it down, I felt someone strapping me down. And that was the first moment that I knew that what I'd been watching was actually me. And that's where my near-death experience begins, or I like to call mine an after-death experience because I was dead clinically. And I I went through this tumultuous period where I felt so ignorant. I felt so silly that I could have been watching my own death and not even know. And then I started to see every bad thing that I ever did in my life, every bad thing, even when I was very young. And then I started to see every good thing that I ever did. And when I was done with seeing every good thing that I ever did, I felt this tremendous warmth come over my back. And I turned around to see this gentleman there. He was all dressed in white. He had a long white beard. He had kind of shoulder length white hair and just the most pink skin. The skin, it glistened like sand at the beach. And this man, he just emitted love. He was sending love towards me. And, growing up in a Western society, I thought this must be God. And so I had that thought, oh, this is God. And without me saying anything with my mouth, he answered using only his thoughts. And he said, no, son, I'm not God. And the next thing I know, he's explaining that he's my guide and that he's there to help me go wherever I want to go. I could go back to my body, and he motioned back to my body. And it looked horrible there. I didn't want to go there. So he said, well, we can go anywhere you want to go. So I asked him, where's this love coming from? This love that I could feel coming from him was more powerful than anything I ever felt on earth. And I wanted to go there, wherever that was coming from. And he explained, he got very excited. He said, well, that's coming from our home, my home and your home. I can take you there. So we began this journey, began a existential journey across time and space, but also through dimensions. But yet at the same time, I feel that we weren't leaving that space either. So we were climbing through this reality into the real reality, which I feel the eternal reality is the real reality. This is somewhat of a matrix of sorts. Yeah.
So explain to us then what it felt like for you to move through these realities. What did you experience?
It felt very physical. Even though I had left my body, I could feel the physical movement through dimension and time and space. But what was interesting to me is we weren't just moving from point A to point B. We were having to raise our love energy. And a big part of him helping me is he had to help me understand quite a few different principles. And these principles, I didn't have to fully embrace them. I just had to be willing to accept that they were possibly true. And as long as I could be willing to accept that, then I would continue my momentum. I would continue my progress on this journey. One of the first things that he wanted to teach me was that, the most important thing we can learn here on Earth, and he referred to Earth as kind of like Earth school. The most important thing we could learn here is to be authentic. And that until we can do that, we're not actually learning. We're postponing all the learning and growing that we can have until we're authentic. And that becomes paramount for our growth here on Earth, on Earth School, is to be authentic. That was the very first thing he taught me. And I was kind of laughing because I thought for sure the first and foremost would be love. And he explained that we can't love anyone. We can't even receive love unless we're being authentic. And if
being
we're
our
authentic,
true selves.
Yeah. We have to be our true self to be able to receive true love or to give true love. So it was quite an eye opener for me. And then he helped me understand that it still wasn't about love, that I needed to learn a second principle, that the whole reason I was on Earth was to learn. And that the purpose that Earth exists is for us to learn, to go to school. And it's not some master test. It's just a place to learn and express and grow.
Learn
But
to
it was,
express ourselves. Hmm.
yeah, it was super surreal. And then the third principle he taught me was love. That was awesome.
Hmm.
And to understand that love is a very powerful force in the universe. And in fact, um, my guide, he called himself Drake. Drake said that love is the most powerful force in the universe. It actually makes the universe function and move and operate because of the love that our Creator has for us. Yeah.
And also trust in that process.
Yeah, trust is hard, right? Because trust,
It is.
we want to trust things we know and not trust the things we don't. But when you really tap into what our Creator is, and our Creator's not what religion teaches us as God. Our Creator is much bigger than what religion can teach.
Yeah.
And our one source, our Creator loves us so much that Creator looks at us as this divine masterwork, that we are the applause, we are the crescendo, we are the finale, we are what the whole universe has been working together to form, to create, to grow, and to be who we are. So the entire universe is very interested in us because there's so much that has gone into making us be us.
Yeah, I think we're a lot more, we might be, individuals, but we're all connected. So everything is for the benefit of everyone. Yeah.
It is, and one of the things that he taught me is, modern day we call it quantum entanglement, but the last thing he taught me before I actually arrived to what I call heaven is he taught me that we're all one, all of us.
Yeah.
And that when we hurt each other, when we bomb each other, we're only hurting ourselves. We cannot, it's like taking an axe and cutting your toe off and celebrating that you won. You don't win with that. No one wins. That we're all one. And a big part of what he taught me is that if I have prejudice, even towards prejudiced people, then I too am prejudiced. And that for me, if I really want to embrace the God force or the God love, the source love that our Creator has, then I have to release all prejudice, including the prejudice of prejudiced people. Which that's something right there. Because if you split the world into two parties, prejudice and non-prejudice, but you take those non-prejudice and you ask, well, are you prejudiced to prejudiced people? Now you get 90% of them joining the prejudice. So now we're looking at 90% or 95% of the world either being prejudiced or being prejudiced towards prejudice. Yeah. It's a
That's one
little brain
to wrap
buster.
your head around.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about, judgment? Did you feel judged at all?
So the only judgment I felt was from me. It truly was from me. Now, this one bothers a lot of religious people, and I love all people. I truly love all people, and I respect and love their right to have their opinions, their beliefs, their religions. But I want you to know that there's a very strong consensus of majority of people who have died and had this experience that I've had. We all know there is an unconditional love for all of us. And that our Creator's not pulling out some clipboard and checking off things if we did things or didn't do things. If there is any of that, it's us doing it to ourselves.
Agreed.
And if there's any bottleneck in getting to heaven, it's our prejudice towards other people, because that will be the bottleneck that we won't allow ourselves to go through.
Yeah, I understand that completely. Let me ask you, at that time, did you experience any fear at all? Or was it just a peaceful feeling you had?
just in the very beginning. So just as I was realizing that I died,
Mm.
and before I had met Drake, my guide, I did feel a lot of fear. In fact, I felt like this smothering darkness come over me. It was physical. So the fear, but it was all coming from me.
Mhm.
I know it was coming from me. It was coming from my own shadow. And since my experience, I've done more than 20 years of research and study on the shadow, on trauma, on how we can release shadow and trauma, how we can lovingly embrace shadow to heal it with the light.
Mhm.
And it was the shadow side of me that I was feeling. It was definitely not God, though. That
Yeah.
was all me. It was all ego human. Yeah.
Ego and God, two parts.
Yeah, exactly. Top of the ladder, bottom of the ladder.
Yeah, yeah. I understand what you say there when you said it was like a physical fear that you were feeling, because I have out of body experiences and I know it's not a physical thing, but I can only explain that I feel things as a physical being. I feel the goosebumps all over my body. I feel like a fluttering. I hear something in my ears, but I know I've not got physical ears. So it's all very interesting to me, this whole thing, because that's the only way I can describe it, as feelings of the physical body. So, and I know that fear grasps the physical body because of the ego. I don't think it's
Mhm.
anything to do with the unconditional love side. It's definitely all us. I'm 100% with you what you were saying. Can I ask you about the life review that you were having then? You said that you
Mhm.
were shown the good things and that you were shown the bad things. How did you feel at that time?
So first I was shown all the bad things I ever did, and I was surprised. I saw things that I did when I was 4 years old. I saw things, I have a brother that's only 2 years younger than me, and he was highly favored by my father. So I would wait until my father wasn't around, and then I would give him turmoil as like a payback because he was so loved by my father.
Oh.
And I saw some of those moments. I did. I saw every time that I did something with the purpose of harm or maybe just naughtiness. But I also saw other times where I wasn't trying to do anything harmful, but the words that came out of my mouth became harmful for someone else. Or the way
Okay.
that I treated them and they loved me and I didn't know that they loved me. That actually happened a lot and I had no idea. And so that was a big eye opener. And then as soon as I finally got to the end of that dusty road, that sad place of all the harm I ever did, I then started to feel this warmth overtake me. And that warmth flooded me with all the good that I ever did. And I wouldn't say I was a good person when I died. I would say I was pretty average. I did some really good things. I went and served a service mission and I did a lot of good stuff in Southeast Asia for people. But I was no saint. I was a druggie. I was a bodybuilder. I was an alcoholic. I had a lot of problems, but yet there was a lot of good that I did. Even sometimes when I was inebriated, I was still doing good things because I cared about people. And so I got to see all of the good that I ever did. And I got to see that even sometimes angels were working with me, spirits were working with me, and I had no idea. But I finally got to the end of my life review where I saw everything bad, I saw everything good, and I had this strong knowledge that there was far more good than there was bad.
So when you say that you were shown all the bad things that you did, and then you started to see the good things and you were overcome with this warmth,
Hmm.
how would you, because intuitively I'm getting that this is forgiveness, how would you describe that?
Absolutely. It's
Same
almost
thing?
like heaven is an attorney for you. They're going to make you face your shadow, make you face your darkness, but at the same right, they're going to remind you of your light. They're going to show you everywhere you did good. Even when you didn't know you were. I would say that majority of us are very good souls inside. And we make mistakes because we think we're doing the right thing. There's very few of us that outright do wrongful things. Not in the beginning. But after we become a victim, then we feel better and we feel okay about doing wrong things to people. You know, the saying that hurt people, it's very true. The predators of today were the victims of yesterday. And the victims of today, if they're not given love and healing, they will be the predators of tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. It opens my eyes, I mean, over the last few years with the work that I've been doing, don't judge people because you don't know where they're coming from. You don't know what they've been through. You don't know what they've experienced. And if they're angry people or aggressive people, then they've experienced that growing up. So it's not that it's their fault. It's something they've experienced and something that needs to be addressed. But I don't ever respond to it with unkindness or, responding with the anger that I'm getting. Never. It's made a big difference in my life, understanding that we are connected to everything. So if we're angry at someone else, we're really angry at ourselves.
We are.
And and it's very true what you said earlier, but the way I word it is that it's like, drinking the poison yourself and expecting somebody else to die. We're all harming ourselves.
Yeah, we're only harming ourselves. And what's really amazing about that is, in my work of working one-on-one with a few thousand people each year, I've been told many times by Spirit, don't judge them until you've lived their life.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't live their life, so I can't judge them. I cannot judge anyone. And there's people on death row that I've worked with. There's people that are saints in my own judgment, but they would never admit that they are. And so I've worked the full spectrum from the lightest to the darkest in energy. And I'll say that every single one of them is divinely precious to our Creator. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
No matter their religion, no matter their lifestyle, no matter their mistakes, they are pristinely precious to our Creator.
Yep, everyone is equal and is important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if I was to ask you if there was one main lesson, excuse me, that you think we're all, and I know you've talked about a couple of them there, but what would be the main one that you think we're all here to learn?
Well, we're here to use our power of creation, and that's our thoughts. Whatever we think for 17 seconds, we will actually start to create. And if we're thinking a lot more than 17 seconds about something, we are not just creating it, we're attracting it, we're gravitating it towards us. And this is a very important power. We come to Earth School to learn how to create. We create relationships, we create inventions, we create love, we create all sorts of masterworks and artworks. And what's amazing to me is with all this power of creation, how many of us waste that power every single day by consuming other people's creations. We can never wake up the chef inside of us if we're always eating other people's food.
Very good way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah, we've got to wake up that chef inside. We've got to wake up that creator inside and start using your thoughts as powerful, powerful magic wands. I joke around with a lot of my clients that we're all members of the Magi Nation. The Magi's were the magicians. They were the the men and women of old that would change the world. But our access card to the Magi nation is our imagination. Imagination. That we need to use our imagination, use our thoughts, and think about positive things. If the entire world thought about peace and disarmament and unity on a daily basis, we could set up a countdown clock until it would arrive. If we all did it on a daily basis, we have so much power with our thoughts, and what we think we create, what we think we attract. It's very, very powerful. So be careful of what you're consuming. Because if you're consuming dramatic, violent content, you're attracting dramatic, violent outcomes.
Yeah, we're very powerful. We do create. I want to go back to the 17 seconds. You were talking about when you think something for 17 seconds. Where does the 17 seconds come from?
So I forget the study, but there was a study with, it started first with Olympic athletes. And the doctor who was running the study was running it during the 80s. And he was studying Olympic athletes who practiced in their mind versus athletes who practiced physically. And so this doctor, in fact, he was a human biologist essentially and a doctor, and he was wanting to understand, is there any difference between those who mentally practice and those who physically practice? And believe it or not, the study was definitive. They were getting about 20% higher results on those who practiced mentally, and they visualized success in their mind with less physical practice. And so the hybrid model in some of your most successful industries with physical performance, they put an emphasis on mentally allowing yourself to see your success long before it happens. And so we have this window of 17 seconds. They found that if you could go at least 17 seconds on a daily basis, broadcasting with your thoughts something positive about your life, and if you're consistent and doing it every day, you will slowly watch your whole world change. Now, does that mean your goal just happens like 7 days in? No. But what it does mean is something that feels like the goal happens, and then something even closer to the goal happens, then something even closer to the goal happens. But what I love is we are the creators of our own universe. We're the creators of our own reality. It's up to us. We don't need to be the victim to anyone else. We don't. Even if we are a victim, we don't have to be a victim. I mean, if you know about my background, there's plenty of victimhood there, and to pretty much the worst layers that you can find in most modern societies. And I let that amplify me. I let that motivate me. I let that sharpen me and make me better. And I'm so grateful for my abuse. I'm so grateful for it because it makes me who I am. And I don't want to lessen that, and I don't want to downgrade that. If that means I needed to step through the valley of death or abuse as a kid, then I did, and I'm grateful for it. Because now I can help so many others through that valley with experience.
And because you know you're surrounded and guided by unconditional love.
I do. People come up to me and they say, "Oh, you were speaking to demons in your experience," or this has to be, Lucifer, or this has to be this, or this has to be that. And I tell them this: once you've walked a mile in my shoes, there's nothing in this world that can convince me anything away from the love that I felt in heaven. And it's not just me. Almost every single person who has had an experience like mine feels the exact same way. There is no debate. There's no challenge. There is a love there that is so strong that I could live another million years and it will not change my mind. That love is so strong and so unconditional, no matter what mistakes I've made.
Yeah, without judgment. And do you believe then that we can access that unconditional love here in this life, in this
I do.
physicality?
I feel like the easiest way to access that is become a parent, whether of a human parent or a puppy or a cat, but become a
Fur
parent.
babies. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fur babies. But I'll tell you, being the parent of amazing kids, I've got two amazing kids, it has helped me tap into a love that is so high vibrational. It's so close to the love I felt in heaven. It is still far away from that love, but it is so close. It's the closest thing you can find here on earth. It is.
Okay. Yeah, I totally agree. I think now is a good time. We're going to take a quick break. So we will be back just in a minute or so, so stay with us. Welcome back to Cosmic Soul Alignment. I'm here with Vinney Tolman and we are talking about his near-death experience. And Vinney, I'm quite excited to ask you actually, when you were talking with your guide, were you given a choice to come back, or how did that conversation go?
That conversation didn't really happen. It's the oddest thing. I actually got to the heavenly realm. I experienced the most life-changing thing, and that was to discover the grass there, the flowers there, the trees there, the water there. And I received a healing, a completion with that healing from the water. And I was just starting to let my attention go to this building there when Drake, he came around to me. He looked me in the eyes and he said, "Vinney, this is going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it." And he brought me in for this hug. And I'll tell you, if we could have one of those hugs per trillion years, it would make all of this worth it. He gave me the most unconditional love in this hug. And I felt this, it felt like a boom of energy come off of us as we hugged. I felt that there's tremendous force and energy in two of us coming together in unconditional love. So as I was hugging him, I felt this, this tremendous love. And before I know it, I'm hearing in my ear my brother on earth giving my body a special prayer. And he was saying in the prayer, he was saying, I bless you to be made whole. I bless you to come back to your body. What I didn't know is I had been brain dead for 3 days. I was in a coma. I was in the hospital. And this was the third night. My brother, he was beside himself. And he just kept thinking, how am I going to tell my mother that her son is gone? And he used that love of our mom and the desire to protect her from what all of this was. And he said this very special prayer over me. And the next thing I know, I wake up at 1:11 in the morning. I just wake up. I pulled every sensor off of me. I had tubes coming in out of my throat. I had catheters coming out of me. I had all sorts of IVs and sensors on my head. I pulled everything off. And I just stood there naked for a moment. And then I realized I was naked, so I needed to grab a little gown and put it on. But I wrapped this gown around my middle section, and I took off walking towards an elevator. But here's the weird part. I knew right where the elevator was. I didn't even need to look around. I knew right where the elevator was. So I was headed right for the elevator. I knew I was on the 3rd floor, and I don't know how I knew that either. But I knew I just needed to get downstairs and leave. Mm-hmm. And while I'm sitting there pushing the elevator button, I hear the loudest scream. And it was one of the nurses. She was checking in, and she saw that I wasn't there. She thought someone stole the body.
Goodness.
And I went back. I felt bad. I didn't want them to get in trouble. So I went back. And for the next 24 hours, almost 30 hours, I didn't remember my experience yet. It wasn't until the night after that my sister, she asked me if I had an experience. And in my brain, I formed the words no. But what came out of my mouth was, yes, I have a guide. His name's Drake. I met him. He showed me heaven. And I started to go off telling her, and I just started to weep. And back then, I didn't cry in public. I'm better about it now. I'm more open about it now. But back then, that was a major sign of weakness I would not allow, ever. Mm-hmm. If there was any tears, I would hide them about anything. But I was just weeping like a little child in front of my sister as I tried to express what was my experience. But I didn't understand it because I wasn't remembering the experience before she asked me. But I was remembering it from the second she asked me if I had it. Well, months later, I was seeing a mental health professional. And he had some prescriptions written out for me. Some antipsychotics, a sedative type product, and one other product. While he's writing out these prescriptions, I had a very, very strong woman come into the room and say to me that she was his grandmother and that I should not take these prescriptions until I deliver a message to him. So I did. I delivered this message to him. It freaked him out. It scared him very badly. He kicked me out of his office and he sent me packing. About 15, 20 minutes later, I get a phone call on my cell phone, and it's him. And he says directly to me, he goes, Vinney, whatever happened to you, I have no explanation. Whatever you're tapping into, it's 100% real and authentic. He says that not even my own wife knew what you told me. He said he had put those experiences behind some type of wall of subconscious in himself, that he didn't even remember it until I brought it up. Kind of the same way that my sister had helped me access a memory about my experience. So it really helped me to see that this is something that can be possible. And he did tell me, he said, I don't think, Vinney, I don't think you should go to a doctor. I think you should go to a priest. and try to work this out with a priest and stop going through medicine to try to fix this. And so I did. Meet with a few priests, and I found a bishop that was very loving and friendly about my experience. Even though every time I would share anything, he'd shake his head and he'd just say, "Well, I don't know, but if that works for you, then that works for you." And it was about 5 months after all that. So it was 6 months after my experience. I was in a little town in Wyoming, and I was watching a historical presentation, a play. And they were showing some of the first leaders in the city, that little town of Wyoming. And up comes a picture of Drake. And I was floored. I didn't, but here's the weird part. It didn't say his name was Drake. It said his name was Charles. But I recognized the last name. It was the same last name as my grandmother, her maiden name. So I went straight from this little school, this little high school, and I went straight to my grandmother's house, and I asked her, I said, "Grandmother, tell me about this Charles Kazare. Tell me about him." And her response was, "You mean great grandpa Drake?" And that was it. I lost it again. I started weeping, and I started to know my guide's real name, his full name. And I also had access through my grandmother's records to read all about him. She had so many records on him. And it didn't make sense why she had so many. She didn't have that many records on anyone else, but him, she had a whole folder, very thick folder of records and special prayers and blessings that he got. And, I got to know Drake on the world side, and I still work with Drake every single day. He's one of my guides. Sometimes that freaks people out, but hey, it works for me, and it helps me do what I do for a living. I actually help people access their own spiritual team, their own spiritual guidance, because we all have them. We all do. So that's the long and short of it.
I don't think anyone can, argue with that validation for you.
No.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. Let me take you back just a little bit, where you said that you were brain dead in the hospital. What was it, for 3 days?
For 3
For
full days.
3. So, and then you magically came back to life, and there was no brain damage at all.
Well, non-detectable. Some might argue that, but non-detectable, yeah. I am a different person though. For those in your audience, they're going to understand this term. Most audiences don't understand this term, but I've been tested to see if I'm a walk-in.
Right.
And your audience is going to understand that. Now, in that testing to see if I was a walk-in, because I was so different coming back than I was going there. I thought that could be a possibility. But for sure, I'm not a walk-in. I'm just very changed, very healed, very loved by my Creator and by the angels that helped me in my experience.
Okay, and that's very understandable. Was there were you given a message that you had to bring back to earth? Was there something you needed to do,
Oh, yeah.
something you needed to teach?
So, when they were bringing me back to my body, and when I say they, it took a whole team of angels and souls and kind of guides to bring me from the heaven space. It's much easier to bring someone from a low space and lift them with love, right?
Yeah.
But to lovingly downgrade, that is hard. That's very hard to do. And so it takes a lot of very skilled angels to do this. So as they were doing that for me to bring me back to my body, I'm nosy, I'll admit, especially back then. I was trying to see what time looked like. I was trying to see what was in our future. I was trying to see what was in our past. And it looked like the same space, by the way. If I looked far enough into our future, I saw our past. When I looked far enough into our past, I saw our future.
Future.
And as I was doing that, I saw that I would be building heaven on earth, that I would be building these sanctuaries and these healing centers to help people through cancers, through trauma, through emotional illnesses, and not just physical illnesses, but both. I would sometimes argue with some people that 99% of all of our illnesses are emotionally based. And if you can get in there and you can access the emotion, the body sorts itself out very quickly, and it lets go. It lets go of the malady or the symptoms or the problem.
Yeah.
And so I know that was something that was somewhat prophesied in my vision because I saw it. I know it exists. I thought it was going to be a lot sooner. Here I am, 23 years later, and 22 years later, and it still is not built, but we are looking for the land right now. So we are going to be building that very soon in the near future. And I also saw that there is a forgetfulness in all of us of who we really are.
Yeah.
And that if we could understand that the whole universe looks at us as the kings and the queens, because so much work was put into us existing here, that they look at us as the divine masterwork, that there's no greater work than what was put into the universe to make us, to make Earth, and to help us function and to help us succeed. There's never in all of time been a society that goes to the next level while they're in their physical bodies. In all the other universes, they leave the physical body, they go to the next level. But with us, we will be attempting, and we're doing it now, we're attempting this graduation while still in the physical. And that's our destiny. That's why the entire universe is invested in what's going on here.
Yeah.
It's our path. It's our purpose.
Yeah, I believe we're watched and we're helped at every turn. I believe, yeah.
Absolutely, we are.
So, did you want to come back?
No, I didn't want to come back at all. But I'll tell you, later, it was 10 years later, I was doing a meditation. And I work with Archangel Michael quite a bit. He's one of my favorite guides. And Drake. And this specific meditation, I was working with Michael, and I asked, who was it that made that executive decision to send me back? And he helped me see that, heaven has documents the same way that earth has documents. But it's more of an energetic document. And he said if I wanted to, I could go see the signature on my energetic document that forced me back to my body. And I felt, oh, great. I can't wait to give this guy a piece of my mind. Why did he do this? He should have let me come back, or he should have let me stay. And I get to this document, I see my own name there. But I knew at a conscious level I didn't want to come back. But at some higher consciousness of myself, I had already agreed before I left Earth that I would come back. And it was part of my soul plan. It was.
Yeah. Your soul contract, yeah.
I feel that most of us that have come back after having an experience, it's to help remind all of the rest of us of who we really are, where we truly come from, and where we're going next.
Yeah. So we've only got 2 or 3 minutes left. So let me ask you then, what do you hope that others take away from your story today?
Know that you're loved. Even if you don't feel loved, know that you are. Know that when you walk outside and you feel the sun touch your skin, that's love. That's the sun loving you. And yes, you can get too much love, so don't don't get burnt in the sun, but appreciate the love where it comes to you. When you go out and you breathe the fresh air, that's love. When you put your feet in the ocean, that's love. When you recognize that it's a miracle, a true miracle, that your heart beats on its own, that your body functions by itself, that is love. And if you can start there, you can start a gratitude path where you are grateful for all that you have.
Wonderful message. And it's been a lovely conversation. I was really excited to talk to you about it, actually. I love hearing about all these things, above the veil, out of physicality.
Yeah,
That's my passion. So I want to say thank you for sharing this extraordinary journey with us. Your story is a powerful reminder that love is the core of our existence, yeah, and that
yeah.
we're all here with purpose, even when we forget. So thank you for coming on and talking to me. I'm really grateful. And to our viewers, may this conversation open your heart and expand your perspective and help you remember who you truly are. So until next time, keep aligning your soul and take care of yourself. Much love to you all. Thank you, Vinney.
Much love, everyone.